Welcome, everybody. We are so grateful to have you all here today. My name's Komal Minhas. I'm a cancer survivor, endo warrior, and I'm so proud to be here today moderating this conversation. So I'm going to bring our panelists up one by one. So we're going to start with Eliz Martin, founder of That Sparkled Life and MS advocate. Come on up.
Thank you for having me. That's a big step. You got it.
Thank you. Next up, we will have David Markovich, co-founder of 18% and mental health advocate. Next, Mira Mariah, tattoo artist and disability advocate. And finally, Larissa May, founder of Half the Story and mental health advocate. Welcome, everybody. So I was talking to my husband this morning in preparation for this conversation, and I've moderated many panels, but this one, of all the ones I've done, has actually given me most nerves. And it's because I've never been asked about my invisible illness in a public forum. And so I wanted to really hold space and honor all of our experiences, and just also say that I don't know if there's a right way to talk about what we're going to talk about. So I just want to hold space for our truths, the things that we're here to share, and hopefully holding space for everybody in the room as well. So with that said, I first want to know, I didn't even know about am I sick enough, sick guilt, invisible illness. So I'd love to hear from each of you about how you identify around invisible illness. Is that something that you associate with? And what has that journey looked like for you? We'll start with you, Eliz.
All right, good morning. Invisible illness is a struggle because you look so good. How many of y'all have heard that? Like, oh my gosh, you look so good. And it kind of takes away from what's going on underneath the surface in a way. Like it's people saying, oh, you're not sick, you look so good. Like, no, I can be sick and look babe. Like, just because I'm sick doesn't mean I'm ugly. But a lot of people associate that. And it can be a large struggle. For me, part of my symptoms aren't invisible. As you can see, this is Edward. I'm also in a wheelchair.
Hey, Edward.
Yeah, hey, what's up? But a lot of the other symptoms that I do go through on a daily basis are invisible, and it's very hard to communicate that to people who don't get it.
Thank you. One way to think about it is, have you ever ate at a friend's house and you tasted something they cooked and it was just terrible, but you had to smile and say, yeah, this is pretty good. Yeah, and they're like, are you sure? So eat more. And you're like, no, I'm kind of full. So that's living a whole life like that. And it's, if you really, really think about that for a second and saying, for a whole life, everyone is saying, hey, this is awesome, right? And you're nodding along. And invisible illness, at least that's the way I see it, or that's the way I saw it, at least before I got much better in life or knew how to address this, was that of, hey, saying that you're not all right, facing it, and saying, no, I don't like this dish, but I like something else you cooked, or something like that. And I think a lot of people, everyone has experienced hiding what they felt at some point or another in every area of their life. At some point, you're doing work and your boss comes up to you and says, this job is awesome. And you're like, yeah. And then you quickly log on to Indeed.com and you're like, oh, they're hiring. So that's invisible illness from a very small point to a very extreme point. And I think at every point, and between that, there's a whole spectrum that people could fall in between. And I've been on both sides. So that's my definition.
So I get to spend time on both.
We'll just wait for here.
Thanks. Hi. So I'm actually an amputee. So when I wear like cool boots like this, you can't really tell. So I spend half of my time living as a person with an invisible illness, and then half of my time as a person who's extremely visibly disabled because I'm missing my whole leg. So getting to experience both sides of that is a blessing because I get to understand both sides of this conversation. And it can be complicated because people, sometimes they're like, there's no way that you're disabled because you are dressed so nice. And I'm like, that's crazy. Especially looking around this room, this is like it looks like Fashion Week in here, right? Like, how exciting. So my experience with it is that I spend half of the time telling people that I'm super capable, even though I have one leg, and then the other half of the time telling them that there is assistance that I need because I actually do have one leg underneath these snakeskin boots. So that's my experience, and I pass the mic to you.
So I think it's really interesting because I can say for 75% of my life I lived with an invisible illness, but I realized that there's a true power in exposing that and living with a visible illness. And it wasn't until 4 years ago that I realized by being transparent or, showing up and showing that I'm depressed or that I'm inflamed, that had a power. And it had a power because it allowed others to expose what they were dealing with too. And I think we're living in a time right now where these invisible illnesses are being shown. And that's what we're doing today. And I think that all of us in this room, we have the ability to take something that we hid or have to hide and create a platform for other people, because there are so many people that are struggling and suffering and don't even know how to really address the problems that they have. And so for me, I say that, specifically as it relates to mental health and my autoimmune disorder, I feel proud to have a visible illness.
Thank you so much, Larissa. And I want to also let the audience know we're going to be taking questions from the audience for the last 10 minutes. So if you have something come up, just start thinking about that. Mira, I was reading an article last night, and you had talked about how sometimes taking care of yourself, you just have to do it to survive. And anything that feels luxurious or indulgent is actually a protest for you. Can you share a little bit about that in regards to your self-care?
Sure. So I'm a tattoo artist, so I have a really rebellious spirit. I think those things go together really well. And I really enjoy beauty, and I really enjoy fashion, and I really enjoy luxury. And as a disabled person, I didn't really see disabled people having those experiences growing up. When I was younger, I was presented with 2 images of a disabled person. They were sick or they were running a marathon, and that was all I saw. So I wanted it to make it my life goal to show and celebrate disabled women acting glamorous, going to parties and having fun, because I'd never seen it before. And because there's so many steps and processes and weights and barriers to just like getting out the door, that anything extra, fake eyelashes, wanded hair, like whatever gets you there was like this rebellion that was like, no, I'm here and I'm gonna do it anyway, and I'm gonna do it my own way. And if I have to be late for that, then that's what's gonna happen.
And I want to say that I put on my fake eyelashes today because I read that article, and I was like, I am doing this for me today.
Yeah, they look so good. It was the first thing I noticed. I really do love them.
Thanks, girl. Appreciate it. Larissa, when you started sharing about your anxiety and depression online, you were actually running a very different kind of social media account and online presence. And I think that we can all we have this experience where we're like, should I share my story? Is it worthy of being out there? What was it like for you to finally be real about your lived experience online?
It was a sigh of relief. I think I spent my whole life, to give a little bit of context, when I started Half the Story, I was in college, I'd started a social media agency, and I was working in the fashion world. And so everything that everyone saw on social media was me in my outfits, going to Fashion Week, doing all these things. But what people didn't see is that there were weeks on end that I wouldn't go to class, and the only thing I could drag myself out of bed to do was to get up and take a photo for that Instagram. And so when I did that, it made it impossible for people to understand when I was struggling, because I did everything but let them into my life. And so I realized that by sharing the other half of my story, that I could revolutionize the way that I tell stories and empower other people to do so, because social media, as it relates to invisible or visible illnesses and mental health, it plays a big role. And as soon as I shared my story and was able to encourage other people to share their other half of their stories, I realized that that was where the real connection happened. It wasn't in, where I was eating for lunch or, going to Fashion Week or all of the wins. Like, many of the connections and true relationships we build are because of these shared struggles, whether that be a chronic illness, whether that be a loss, or whether that be something much deeper like a pursuit or a passion. And so for me, since then, I've decided to expose.
And Eliz, with That Sparkled Life, you've been very candid about your experience. And in one post, I recall reading that you said a lot of people, they say, I have MS, but MS doesn't have me. But you very candidly said, MS does have me. Can you share a little bit about owning that part of your experience and what that has been like?
For sure, yeah. I almost teared up a little bit because that's such a powerful statement for a lot of people to say, I have MS, but MS doesn't have me. But for me, MS rules my life. I mean, as soon as I was diagnosed, it was very abrupt. I've never been able to walk properly since my diagnosis. I never was able to work again in a full capacity. And MS is I say it's like this little red wagon with no bad words, a ton of really heavy bricks in it, and it goes with me everywhere. And that is a struggle because a lot of people, again, see this and they don't see that little red wagon, and they don't see that I am struggling every day with a disease that is incurable, that is progressive, that is never going to go away. And they kind of get tired of hearing about it, honestly. They're kind of like, well, all right, you were bad yesterday. Why are you bad again today? And it's like, because I have MS. It does not go away. And again, with that invisibleness, those invisible symptoms, a lot of people just would like to look away and see the good because it makes them feel more comfortable.
Thank you so much. Mira, when we were talking earlier, when I have my endo pain every month, I used to suppress it. I used to be like, I'm good. I'm just gonna go to class today and then just be totally debilitated. But you are very vocal with your clients about days that are painful. Can you share a little bit about what got you to that point of feeling like you could be that vulnerable with them without shame? And what is the experience around shame and pain?
Yeah, so shame and pain, I think, are best friends.
Fact.
And it's a toxic friendship that needs to break up. Pain is hard enough without indulging in the shame of it, even though it's really tempting to. Some amputees are able to navigate the world with basically just a minor inconvenience, and others deal with chronic pain. I have some really intense neurological issues that will never be cured. So I kind of had to make a decision as a celebrity tattoo artist, as a mom, as a person that wanted to experience my life, that I needed to either be honest with people or have them think I was going to be a flake forever. And even in my honesty, I'm sure they still think I'm kind of flaky. And I have to just take that and go with it and be okay with that. But my transparency with my clients, I think, opens a door to vulnerability that they're giving me vulnerability too, right? They're trusting me with their bodies. So I need to trust them with my honesty. And yeah, I am going to do something for you that's going to be with you forever. And I want to give you the best version of myself. And sometimes the best version of myself is not available. So we need to reschedule. And I have to budget financially for that. And I need to budget my time for that, and I need to be really honest with the people that I'm working with. But I think that's the power in this, what you're talking about a lot, breaking the invisible disability thing. Breaking that invisibility is when we break that, then other people can see us for what we are, and we can let them know our needs.
Yes, thank you. David, so I've read articles about 18%, which is the online platform you've created and community. And a lot of it has to do with your co-founder's experience with a friend who had mental health. But you shared with me today that there's actually another reason that this was very important to you. Can you share your experience with your own invisible illness?
Yeah, sure. Is this one working? First of all, I thought your eyelashes were real.
Aww. They are.
I
they totally are.
I was very disappointed. So I have a very interesting story. I grew up Orthodox Jewish, left at a really young age, and since then lived with a lot of being lost and with a tremendous amount of depression and anxiety throughout my childhood to my teens to young adults, like just extreme suffering of like being lost, not having the option of like, not even having the direction where you're like, hey, what should I be doing? You're kind of just like winging it. And at a really young age, like 15 years old, I had a friend, a good friend of mine, kill himself. And it was a really scary time for me, not because I lost my friend, that was another point, but also for discovering that there's an option. There's an option to, leave. And that stuck in my head. I was like, wait, should you live in pain? Should you live in pain for a long time, or you could just leave? And living with that, nobody ever told me that that's wrong. It was just an option that made people upset for a very short period of time, and everyone moved on with their life, and that person didn't have to live in pain. So I lived with that thought, but I kept on, fighting, and I had this like entrepreneur spirit, so I've always started businesses and was able to be self-sufficient and, travel and, work on projects, found projects like 18%. And as life went on, I never shared what it felt like. I closed off at a really young age in my life, like where I was just like, I'm not gonna show anyone my emotions ever. It made me a very good businessman, and I did very well in poker. But in my emotional life, it was really tough because it doesn't make a difference. You could grill me, say, hey, I know something's not right. I know something's not right with you. And I would sit there and say, hey, everything's fine. Because I never had an outlet that I could share that with. I'd share that too, because I just had this lack of trust of just being in the wild myself. So as time went on, I became friends with this guy named Zach, and he came to me one day and he's like, hey, my friend passed away, he had schizophrenia and bipolar, and I wonder if there's anything that we could do. And I said, this is 2 years ago, and I said, I don't really want to be affiliated with mental health. Surprisingly, I'm always like telling everyone, hey, like let's rid the stigma, but Zach, don't tell anyone what I went through. Like, no one shared what I went through, but we'll rid the stigma for everyone else. So we teamed up and we said, hey, what about if we made like a small platform where people could just get support? Like, we're unlike the suicide hotline, or just people could log in and chat with each other. So if I'm going through depression, you're going through depression, or I have bipolar and somebody else just got diagnosed with bipolar, we could chat. And we said, how can we grow this? So we contacted all the suicide hotlines, crisis text lines, and we said, hey, if you ever get people that need something like continuous support, just send them our way. And it worked. It was like they would just continuously send us people. And I think last year, the suicide hotline got 2 billion phone calls just in America.
Wow.
To put that in perspective, that's a lot. And so they got 2 billion phone calls, and right now they're trained, hey, to refer people that need it. And for our success, we hit over 1 million messages this year of people offering support with each other. It's been fully funded by my friend and I. I run my own company. Zach, my partner, he has his full-time job, and we do this on the side, and we just like hack it together so people can get support. And that's my first time ever sharing my personal story in public.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that so much. We appreciate it so much. Larissa, your experience with creating community online around talking about mental health has been really beautiful to watch. I was going through Half the Story's Instagram feed, and I just felt like I was in a cocoon of beautiful, meaningful stories that made me feel so seen. Can you share a little bit about the response from your community?
Yeah, so it's so crazy that I'm up here right now. Sorry. Because it was created out of a really lonely place. And, well, I've been crying out of my home before. Well,
We're here for you. We love you.
I love you.
Okay, Yeah, so it's, I never thought that half the story would lead me here. I started it out of my own need and my own struggle, and I was alone in college, and I realized that, thank you, other people were as well. And I started, after I shared my story, so many people on my campus and around the world started sharing theirs. And I had the opportunity to travel around the United States the year after I graduated college to just speak and interview young people and understand the effects that social media had on their mental health. And so I realized that a year ago, as a result of that response, that I can no longer do this alone. As like a 20-something, I was funding basically all of it. And I realized that there was an opportunity to build this both online and offline. And so we started bringing people together with our story squad in different cities, and we created a play about mental health technology in modern society. And now we're in a program around digital well-being. And really what our vision is to continue building this community, but really to empower the next generation's relationship with social media and mental health. Because when social media is used the right way, it brings us places like here, but we also, I see it as a responsibility for my generation specifically to work to build the programs and tools for educators and parents and teachers to teach young kids how to train their minds. Just give them a digital well-being class in the same way that they have PE class, because we can't disregard the fact that technology is going to be a part of our life for the long run. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Larissa. So, Eliz, I love that sparkled life. The tone that you have online, the way that you share your stories, it's so meaningful and is having such great impact. And I wonder, how do you decide when you're ready to share something? What does that look like for you? How do you set those boundaries for yourself of this is actually just for me, and this is something I'm actually ready to give to other people?
Again, a great question. Isn't she doing awesome with these questions? I mean, goodness gracious. And just to clarify, it's The Sparkled Life, just in case, if you find it.
Follow on Instagram, on the website, where it's all linked up.
What I have always stuck with is I need to be authentic. So that's what all my posts are. They're authentic, sometimes brutally authentic, sometimes the brutal is the only word I like to use. But when other people respond, that's when I know that I've hit a trigger point within the community. And when other people are like, oh my gosh, I feel this too, or oh my gosh, toxic positivity is a thing, then I kind of expand from there. And that engagement is really what draws me along to what I share and what I don't share. Mostly because this isn't about me. This isn't about me posting pictures of myself. It's about sharing and connecting and engaging. Because as we've heard earlier, we're not alone in this. And that is such an awesome feeling to know that. So really what guides me in what I share is what I hear from the community, what people send me questions about, and it's really from an engagement and an authentic outlet.
Thank you, Eliz. Mira, I am curious. You're so creative. The tattoos that you do, oh my God, if you look at the Instagram feed, you've done climps, you've done so many different things. What role does creativity play in how you are moving through the world in reconciling with your disability?
So as an artist, I think that all artists, I'm sure there's so many artists here, make art from our experiences. And I wanted to make art that celebrated the women in my life, and the real women in my life. And I often take traditional Renaissance paintings and change them to be fat women or disabled women or trans women, because these are the kinds of women that I'm spending time with, and these are the kinds of women that I want to see reflected in my art. And I've been able to tattoo that and illustrate that and have it printed on products in Sephora and have it in Gucci. So that's like really fun. And those are the kind of women that I want to see in those, like going back to the luxurious conversation, like in those luxurious spaces. And I wanted to see the kind of women that I see here and the kind of women that I see in New York around. So creativity has been healing and fun and celebratory for me.
That's so beautiful.
Thanks.
I want to actually open it up to the audience now. If we do have questions in the room that you'd like to ask, yes, let's start here.
Hi, my name's Molly, and I have MS. It's my superpower. And I'm wondering, especially for the people who have invisible diseases, if you talk about that in employment situations when I've watched this show called The Employables, which everybody should watch. It's on A&E. It's all about people with disabilities who are trying to get jobs. And I'm wondering, what part of the interview process do you say, I have a disability, and being open and honest with it? I mean, on social, I talk about my infusions. I have lots and lots of pro-MS stuff. So if they looked me up once, they'd probably see it. But I'm wondering how open I should be in employment discussions.
Who would like to discuss? David?
I got it. So we work with that. That question actually comes up a lot within the community during job interviews. So somebody I was speaking to a few months ago that had that, and I said, if it's something that they're going to find out eventually, which likely, if you live with any invisible illness, the employer is going to find out, and you rather them accommodate the way you're living. So I said, why don't you position it as like a positive? So the person that was talking to me was like, they live with anxiety. So I said, if you position it like, hey, I'm anxiety, so I have a lot more to prove. I have anxiety, so I have a lot more to prove. I'm also on top of my game because I'm anxious, so I'm going to be like first to the meeting. I'm going to be, my emails are going to look over like 10 times, and they did that, and they got hired at a Fortune 500 company because that's the way they pitched it. They were like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, so I might be a little bit annoying, but I'm going to work my ass off. I think someone's going to have to blur something out of the video. I had one rule. Okay, so yeah, if you could position it the right way, people don't mind, and you'll be surprised. A lot of times when you're speaking to someone about your invisible illness, they're like, hey, me too. You know? Yeah. So everyone struggles. The people that struggle the most are the ones that look like they're not struggling, or the ones that won't admit that they're struggling, because they're kind of like the way I lived, where they're just like, hey, I'm in the stage of filters, right? There's like a filter on top of me. It looks nice, it looks awesome, but I think it's fine. I think it's fine to always talk about it, and you don't want to work for a place that won't employ somebody that's suffering either. So if it's not a fit, it's not a fit, you know?
Would anyone else like to tackle that?
I mean, I think that especially in the past year, a lot of workplaces are working to improve these policies. And if they aren't, then granted, they're not a place to work. But I think another advantage you have as someone with MS is that you're looking for something else that these people who aren't there can't see. And if it's a product-driven or a service-driven institution, like, you can make sure that everything that they're building is accessible to all. And that is incredibly important, not only, I mean, if you look at it from the business perspective, like, to be commercially viable now and even respected as a business, you have to be considering all of these things. And so I think there's no better time than now to really be open about that and show them how you can shift the way that they're thinking or building or creating.
Thank you both. I hope that was helpful. Next up from the audience, I saw, yeah, we'll take right from back there. We'll bring a mic your way.
Hi. I have a question for Liz. So I have dysautonomia and digestive tract paralysis. And like you, my illness renders me incapable of having a job, leaving my house very often. It's ruined my 20s. And I really struggle with being around my 20-something-year-old friends and trying to relate to them, and I get furious with the things they complain about and talk about, like really, really angry. because their problems are so different than anything that I can relate to, and it's laughable sometimes. So I was wondering what you do about that anger, frustration with people around you who are just so different.
Yeah, I think regardless of your diagnosis, there's like, you've been through some heavy S word. And then, sorry, David. And so then when people try to make small talk, or they're like, I have a cold, it's the absolute worst. It's like, no. Again, S word, pooping your pants really is the absolute worst. You know, like, it really kind of elevates your conversation to, you want to know the deep stuff with people. You don't want to know about their little minute struggles. And that anger is real and valid, and it's something that I think is a conversation starter, definitely to share with your friends. If it's a trigger, sometimes those types of relationships you might have to step away from or involve in a different way, because triggers are not good. But then I think also there's this, you kind of have to take a step back and realize that not a lot of people get it. We're fortunate here today that most of the people here in this room get it, but society doesn't. And we kind of have to be patient and keep on advocating and having events like this until society freaking gets it, so that we don't feel that anger and that frustration, and we can just feel ourselves.
Yes.
Thank you.
All of that. Honestly, when I was talking to Nithika about Chronicon and I was thinking about those worst days, it was like, I wish I had this on those days. So I so appreciate the space we can all hold together. We'll grab another audience question. Yeah. Oh yeah, Mira wants to.
I just want to add something to that, because I have experienced that a lot, and I did something that really changed my experience from that. Diversify your friend group. Are you friends with disabled people? Are you friends with chronically ill people? And I think that for me, shifting my friend group a little bit and making sure that I made time for relationships with other people with chronic conditions the way I had really changed my experience, as well as you're all here, so I'm sure you're already doing this, diversifying your feed. So if your Instagram feed is a bunch of thin, able-bodied white women on vacation, you're not gonna feel good about yourself. But if your Instagram feed shows women who are struggling with mental health, women who are making academic accomplishments, women who are being really transparent, I think that your general social media experience and your general social experiences are gonna be a lot easier. And thank you.
Thank you. So we'll head over here. We've got a mic live.
Hi, I'm Amy Tendrich. I run Diabetes Mind at Healthline, actually, so I'm an advocate for type 1 diabetes. And so this question comes up all the time about when to disclose, especially in the workplace. It's kind of mission critical if you have type 1, because you might pass out at work. People need to know. But the other huge issue for us, obviously, is healthcare right now, healthcare coverage. And so many people in my community feel totally trapped and stuck in their career because they need the coverage so desperately. They can't, changing jobs is a big deal, and going off your parents' coverage at 26, and then suddenly you can't, your whole life is about paying for your insulin and your diabetes. I'm just wondering how you've all dealt with that. Like, do you have the coverage you need, or do you know any tips and tricks to free yourself up in your career with that, not only looking at the healthcare issue, right?
Is there anyone who would like to address?
I'll go ahead and jump in. I'm on Medicare, and that's a hot topic right now with the election coming up, and it makes me anxious because there is a lot of change that could be happening that affects my life. And I know with diabetes, the insulin price has gone up and up. And again, right now, we live in a very frustrating part of history where we're kind of trapped by insurance. And I'm trapped in Medicare. That kind of sucks. Like, I'm trapped on government insurance. I'm trapped when they say use this drug instead of this drug. And, the best thing you can do is to have a very awesome doctor that will advocate for you and a very good health team that can help battle your insurance. I think that is so important. That's been so important to me, to have some really awesome nurses in my MS clinic who will go up to bat for me.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else who'd like to share? We're going to ask our last audience question, then I'm going to wrap up with the panel right up front. Yes. Would you like to grab a, yeah.
Hi, my name's Sarah. I have fibromyalgia, depression, and anxiety. I've had a best friend for the past, I believe, 12 years of my life that I thought understood a lot about, the life that I live, being chronically ill. However, recently, after, I guess, like 12 years, I realized that she doesn't understand anything, because she said things like, you're the one that controls this relationship because you walk in and walk out whenever you want, not understanding that there are times in my life where I don't have the energy. My fatigue is so bad that I don't even have the energy to sit, or if I'm laying down, I don't even want to move a limb. Have you guys had situations like that in your life where you've had to deal with like someone really, really, really close to you? Because I feel like I've almost lost that person now, because this is like it is me. That's the one thing that defines me, and that's the one thing she doesn't understand. I don't know how to deal with this situation.
Mm-hmm. David?
I can't give you a solution for this particular circumstance, because there's a lot of variables, and like there's a lot of places where she's coming from also, because she could be suffering too, and she's like, wait, am I only there for you when you need help, or are you not here for me, and vice versa. So there's a lot of conversations I had that with my friends. It's interesting because I have friends that, some of my closest friends, I'll go MIA for like 6 months and then pop back up like nothing happened, because they're living their life and they know that like I'll pop in and out, and it gets much better. But also with time, I think it just happens. When you get older, you don't need to be like holding hands with your best friend all the time. Like, you could check in with your friends once in a while and say, hey, what's up? And everything just reconnects like usual. If it's family's family. And a lot of times your family is not related to you. Mm-hmm. So if you can't sit down and say, hey, this is how I've been for like over a decade. I don't know why now in the past few months. Exactly. And maybe she'll say, because I'm struggling now. Mm-hmm. She's not. And then unfriend her on Facebook. And delete her email address. No, but find more people. Like, like diversify. We're in a city of 8 million people. If only there was a conference that dealt with chronic illness. We would attend that and find all of our new friends. Yeah. But until that happens, we should just, find people on social, find people you connect with. And I think with time, you find things in people. Your taste, just like your taste in food changes, your taste in alcohol, your taste in places, your taste in vacations, everything changes. Your taste in people change too, and it gets more mature. Mm-hmm. And you're going to look for certain things in people, and this is one of the things you're going to look for. Are you in here for the long ride? Are you going to, and a year later, you're going to say, no, I'm here. Like, I have a friend I was like, why do you hang out with that person? She's like, a bad person. Like, that's my party friend, right? Like, and like, oh, so what am I? I think you'll see. You think your time will get mature. Don't worry. And if your friend is struggling, then try to be there for them. And if you can. If they're not struggling, they're just writing your S word.
Yeah. Larissa?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think one of the things that, whether it be a best friend or whether it be a romantic partner, when you're dealing with a chronic illness, it can feel like you take up a lot of space, at least for me. And I think I've had a lot of guilt. When we think about guilt, like it's like that's where my guilt has been. It's like, oh, well, how is Lars feeling today? Oh, Lars can do it, or Lars can't do it. And I think what I realized throughout this experience is that there's a true difference between sympathy and empathy. sympathy is the ability to say, I feel bad for you, I'm sorry. Empathy is the ability to say, I've been there, I struggle with this, and I'm totally here for you. And that is where the true power of finding allies who struggle with chronic illness is so valuable. And that I've drastically shifted my friends, because when you deal with a chronic illness, you don't have as much to give every single day, because you're so concerned with just like what it takes for you to get out of bed is what it could take one person to have an entire 10-hour workday. And it's okay. And I think that setting expectations is so critical, not only for yourself, but also for other people. And so that's why this is so powerful. And being in this room, you might be able to find a few other people that you can lean on who can not just say, I feel sorry, or, I know that you've been doing this for 10 years, but girl, I'm feeling that way too. Like, want to talk about it? Cool. You want to have a phone call? Great. Like, then you really won't feel alone.
Mm-hmm. I'd also say when I was diagnosed with cancer, I had friends ghost and to never return to this day. And so sometimes people fall off. And I think there's a grief that comes with that, which is very S word on top of all the other things with our illnesses. But at the same time, moving past it, letting it go sometimes can be the healthiest thing for us. So we have very limited time, but I want to go across the panel with this last one. So we all have bad days, sometimes more bad days than good. But when you're in that low spot, what do you wish you would remember? Like, what is that thing, that kind of the nugget that, and sometimes it's not one thing, and this is me trying to let's bring the vibe up on the last question on this panel. What is that thing that you want to would remind yourself of from the state that you're in today?
Me first?
Yes, we'll go down.
All right, let's go. One thing that I always tell myself is, it's going to be okay. And that's such a simple phrase, and it might not be okay. But my record has shown over the past 7 years that I'm kind of a bad A-word, and I am okay. And so on those bad days, I literally have it written all over our apartment, it's going to be okay. And I see that, and some days I'm just like I tear it up, but then other days I'm like, okay, it's going to be okay. I'm gonna breathe, I'm gonna go take a nap, and hopefully tomorrow will be better.
David?
I think very similar to you, that you fought 100 battles, you always won, you're gonna win 101. But then I also think about if you're really down, I'm like, hey, the world is a single player game. It doesn't make a difference what you convince yourself. It's not multiplayer. You're in this for yourself, and whatever you do, the results are gonna be given back to you. That's it. People think that there's everyone's there surrounding you, feeling your pain. People can feel it to an extent, but you're the one that's living it. And when I think like that, hey, what do I gotta do to get out of this? And I have my steps, and sometimes you just have to say, okay, I'm gonna ride this out. What is this gonna take? I don't know, 2 days? Okay, I'll be all right in 2 days. It's fine. But I like to not get there, and I haven't in a really long time, because I do more preventative stuff. So I realize there's a lot of outside aspects that could ruin your day. A lot of people think that drinking makes you happy. Well, a lot of people don't realize it's actually a depressant. So if you drink a lot on Saturday night, Tuesday or Wednesday, you could still feel depressed. And you'll set up and you'll be like, wait, why do I still feel like crap? Or C word. Or is that one allowed? I don't know, which one? I didn't read the email of the list of words I can't say. I saw it come in last minute. Okay, so stuff like that. I realized, I was just telling my friend Liz that I cut out coffee. I realized my sleep is just not as good as I like it to be. So it's easier to cut out bad habits than create new ones. And preventative is much easier, and if things happen, it's okay. We made it this far. Things will get better.
Amazing.
And things always do.
Mira?
Hi. So sometimes I'm in a lot of pain and I can't walk or move for a few days at a time. And I have FINE tattooed on my neck. Because a lot of reasons that I'm gonna be fine, and damn, she's fine, and I tattoo the finest lines in New York. And a huge part of my survival depends on my comfort and my joy. So old school Christmas, comfort and joy, have tools around you that like bring you comfort and joy. And that can be face mist or a really good blanket or like a very awesome sweatshirt or just things that make you more comfortable. And I really encourage people to like find 5 items, make them accessible, keep them I keep mine under my bed so I don't need to get out of my bed to retrieve them. I can just kind of like slip this box out and pull all these things out. And they're like my special items that are only for like special bad days. And that brings me comfort and joy. Yeah. That's how I move on.
If I'm having a bad day, I'll always tell myself there's strength in my weakness. This too shall pass. And then I always have a playlist and I play it, and it's, you know, that music has become a memory for me. And by playing the most positive sounds from the best times of my life, I truly believe it helps me get through hard times. And so if you haven't tried that yet, try it.
Thank you so much, everybody. It was such a beautiful conversation. Thank you, everyone who's here.